Hi, my name is Samantha Burke. I am a junior communications major with minors in psychology and journalism. And welcome to my academic showcase paper of a presentation of a paper I wrote, but I saw it on TV, a rhetorical analysis of sexual assault narrative within Grey's Anatomy. Before I get started, I do want to say that I am discussing issues of sexual assault and we'll be talking about those experiences. So if that is something that is uncomfortable for you or triggering for you, please do not feel like you need to watch. You can click away, go enjoy your day. I also want to thank my sponsors, Dr. Austin McDonald and Dr. Kitty Grace. Both have been super helpful in creating this presentation and writing this paper, and I appreciate you both immensely. Thank you for all of your help. And with that, let's get started. So, here's my presentation, we're going to just click through my PowerPoint. I'm going to talk about what I did, and then we'll go from there. So, but I saw it on TV, a rhetorical analysis of sexual assault narratives on Grey's Anatomy. So first, I'm going to talk about why I did what I did and what the significance of it is, give you a quick overview of my artifacts, then talk about my method and lit review. Finally, I will do my findings, a little bit of discussion, and then areas for further research. First, introduction and significance. Stories of sexual assault for many years have been too taboo for primetime television or even real life conversation. We don't talk about issues of sexual assault, and we didn't for a long time. However, the 2017 Me Too movement opened up a dialogue that sparked a wildfire of sexual assault narratives coming into the spotlight, both in real life as well as on screen. The Me Too movement opened up the ability to have these conversations for people to talk about their experiences regarding sexual assault, but it also opened up a dialogue for TV shows and movies to focus on these issues as well. This paper specifically analyzes a 2018 episode of Grey's Anatomy, Silent All These Years, using a feminist rhetorical criticism. This paper demystifies the ways in which the episode disrupts the meta narrative, an overarching story that is used to help shape cultural understandings of an issue or topic surrounding sexual assault. So, why Grey's Anatomy? Why does it matter? And why choose an episode of that TV show? Well, Grey's Anatomy actually holds a fair amount of cultural significance. In March of 2019, it became the longest running primetime medical drama, beating out ER, which was a loved show for so long. Its 16th season just finished airing a couple of weeks ago and has over 350 episodes and is contracted with ABC for another 2 seasons. This episode specifically was pitched by one of the recurring actresses on the show, Camilla Luddington, who plays Dr. Joe Karev, as a response to Dr. Balsey Ford's powerful testimony against Brett Kavanaugh. In fact, following the episode being aired, an article was written claiming that Brett Kavanaugh's trial inspired the episode, to which one of the head writers of the show responded and tweeted that it was never about Kavanaugh, it was about Dr. Ford, stating, quote, "There was not a woman in the country who was not shaken by her testimony, and we wanted to show the power that it holds." This episode was a direct response to a cultural shift in understanding and narrative. And because Grey's Anatomy already held a cultural significance, it was able to meet an audience and share this experience and these narratives. I will be using just one episode from one storyline from the episode. It is an episode that focuses on Abby, a woman who went to the ER following being sexually assaulted, and her interactions with different doctors, primarily Dr. Joe Karev. So, a quick lit review. Most of the research that has been done about sexual assault shown on TV has done through the lens of one show, Law and Order Special Victims Unit. It is probably the most popular TV show that tells narratives of sexual assault. However, research has also shown that SVU relies heavily on stereotypes and myths in order to tell these stories. They risk becoming what is known as trauma porn, or exploiting the trauma of someone for entertainment value of an audience. But other research has found as well that the ways that TV shows depict conversations of consent and narratives of assault impact the understanding and expectations of viewers when it comes to these topics. So the issue is, if all of our TV shows fall under the same stereotypes, myths, and expectations, the audience reuses that content to inform their own personal beliefs. So we must expand our analysis of different shows and how narrative is being told so we can further the conversation of what the best ways are. Because if we're only looking at one specific style, we don't know what better ways might be out there. And that is what this paper aims to do, to look at another method of telling these narratives. So, what was my method? I analyzed one storyline from this episode, and it is a story of a patient named Abby. In order to identify the disruptions present in the episode, I ended up watching it 6 different times. And this is my favorite TV show and one of my favorite episodes of my favorite TV show. And I have seen it so much that I probably will not be able to watch it for a long time. The first time I watched it, I went through and wrote down all the instances of disruption, and then I went through and categorized them into themes. And so I ended up with 3 main themes that came out, or 4 main themes that came out of the episode. First is victim blaming. Second is required self disclosure. Third, showing the process following an assault. And finally, the time frame that the story is told in. Once I was able to identify these themes, I watched the episode 4 more times. Each time I watched it, focusing on a specific theme. So the first time I watched it through after identifying the themes, I focused solely on where did they disrupt notions of victim blaming, and I wrote them all down. Then I did required self-disclosure, and so on and so forth until I had worked my way through all of the themes. And then I watched it one final time with all of my notes in front of me, making sure there wasn't anything I missed. I then also went through and used a script of the episode to pull out textual evidence and see if there was anything that I missed when I was watching that was directly written down or said, and then made them into those themes as well. So, what did I find? Like I said, there were 4 themes that were the most important to disrupting the expectations of sexual assault narratives, or hegemony, which are cultural accepted understandings. The first was breaking down notions of victim blaming. This episode deals with the idea of victim blaming, or the idea that those who are assaulted are to blame what happened for them. And this episode works to break down this idea through a few different ways. One of the ways that it's done most primarily is through one of the first conversations that Dr. Karev and Abby, the victim, have in the episode, in which Abby says to Dr. Karev, "We all know that if I do that, kit, it ends up in the back of a police station, ignored for years while I sit there wondering when the bomb will go off, waiting to see if a jury of my peers will believe a woman who wore a skirt a few inches too short, who had a few cocktails too many at a bar last night after having a fight about laundry with her husband. And you know the tequila I drank will make it my fault. And whoever did this to me, whatever he drank, that'll be his excuse. Is your kit going to convince them I wasn't flirting at the bar?" As soon as Abby says this, Dr. Karev responds by saying, "This was not your fault. You didn't ask for this. There is nothing you did to deserve this." And this is the writers of the show doing something very interesting. They set up the cultural expectation and then immediately contradict it with a new idea by breaking down that idea. Abby sets up the idea that everything that she did is the reason that she was assaulted. And then Dr. Karev responds by telling her that this wasn't her fault and there was nothing that she did that made this her fault. And I think that's a really powerful statement made by the writers of the show. The second hegemony that was broken down in the episode was self disclosure, or the idea that in order for victims to be valid, they must share all of the gory details surrounding their assault, tell everyone everything that happened. And they work to break it down. Abby explains that she doesn't want to report or get a rape kit done. And her doctor tells her that she wants Abby to have every opportunity that she can to do whatever she wants, but that it's ultimately her choice and she doesn't have to do anything that she doesn't want to. Directly stating, whether you tell your husband or report it or you do not tell another soul, you are a survivor. You survived. You do not owe anyone your story. They directly explain that no matter what, Abby doesn't have to tell anyone what happened, and she is still valid in her trauma and her experiences. And I think that's a really powerful tool that they use, because it helps to avoid that idea of trauma porn by leaving out all of the gory details. and Abby not having to share anything that she isn't comfortable with. Next, they show visually the consent to having a rape kit performed. They show this process being done in a 2-minute long scene that is almost entirely silence, minus the doctors asking Abby, "Are you ready?" and her responding with yes. This scene is powerful for two reasons. First, it shows the process of a rape kit being done, something very rare for primetime television. But more importantly, it also rebuilds a narrative of consent because anytime they do something new or touch Abby in any way, they first ask, "Are you ready?" and "Are you sure?" And she responds with verbal affirmative consent by saying, "Yes," the way all consent narratives should go. They reestablish her own bodily autonomy by letting her consent to what happens to her every single step of the way. And it's very powerful to watch it be done on screen because there are very few TV shows that venture as far as to show this. And finally, one of the other tools is the time frame of the assault or of the story. The entire story is told post assault. It only focuses on the choices that Abby makes. The choice to go to the hospital, the choice to have a rape kit performed, the choice to tell her husband. They don't focus on anything that happened before the assault that Abby doesn't want to share, and they don't share any of the details of the assault itself. It doesn't matter what happened. All that matters is where Abby is now and the choices that she is currently making, which makes a very powerful statement that there is always something that comes after. There are always choices that you can make, and those are more important than anything that has happened to you. So, why is this episode so effective in telling this story? I found two different rhetorical devices that I think were the most powerful to make this episode unique. First is meta narrative. Meta narrative is the socially accepted story of an event. They help the audience to be able to connect and understand with the experiences of characters. This episode uses it in a unique and exciting way by setting up the meta narrative and then directly providing contrast, like we saw in the victim blaming and self disclosure disruptions. They talk about what societal expectations are and then provide a new idea to contradict that narrative without necessarily playing into to the meta narrative. And I think it's a very powerful tool that can be used because it starts conversations of, wow, why do we believe this, or this? And provides new ideas and new information that can be considered in the conversation. The other is the visual framing that is used within the episode, specifically when they show the process of a rape kit being performed. They use close camera angles to make the audience feel involved in the moment. There's nowhere else for them to look during this part of the episode. They have to focus on Abby, they have to focus on this process, and they have to focus on her consent. And this is used frequently. There are very few other characters during Abby's storyline of the show. You only see her and the select doctors that are working with her. You have to focus on what is happening to her, and the music that is used is very quiet and not overwhelming. You're focused and solely focused on her through the visual framing as well as the sound used in the episode. So, where else can gift go? What other further research must be done regarding sexual assault narrative? First, this episode did a spectacular job of keeping the narrative focused on the victim by only referring to the assaulter as he, him, through he, him pronouns. They do not give him a name, giving him less power. However, by using a victim who self identifies as female and an assaulter who's been identified as male, it provides a heteronormative narrative about assault. There are few storylines and very few research done about queer assault or assault against male victims. More research needs to be done about how we tell these stories because they are just as important and just as vital to continuing conversations post Me Too and as sexual assault narratives make their way onto the big screen. Secondly, more research must focus on what strategies are effective for telling these narratives and avoiding trauma porn. There have been studies that highlight what to avoid when telling these stories, which is very important. It's good to understand what things are harmful and what isn't helpful. However, we also need to understand what things can be done to effectively tell these stories. It helps to build the toolbox of storytellers everywhere because if we have strategies that we know are helpful and work very well, we can work to incorporate more of those strategies into these narratives so that more of these stories can be told. And overall, there is much more research that needs to be done regarding sexual assault narrative, and this is just the beginning. So here are my references. Thank you all so much for watching. I am so passionate about this paper and this presentation. I love it. I have been working on it for so long. And if you have any questions or comments, please just let me know. I would love to talk about it more. And I thank you for your time and your attention.